Vayeshev Yaakov beretz Meguri Yaviv beretz Canaan. Remarkable mashal that Rashi, and a long mashal that Rashi gives in the first Rashi. Vayeshev Yaakov settled in his land of his father's residence, in the land of Canaan, Zok Rashi. After the Torah had written all about the settlements of Vayeshev and his descendants, b'derech tzoreh, in a precise manner, because they were not notable or important to warrant details to explain how they settled. And the narrative of wars in which how they drove out the Chayri. So now he proceeded in detail to tell you the settlement of Yaakov and the descendant, and at length. So Yaakov was told, they tell you everything about Yaakov b'derech harucha, and Esav everything is told b'derech k'tzorah. There's derech haktzorah and derech harucha. What was the Torah tells it at great length? Kol gilgulei sibosam, all the consequences of events, all the sequences, of events, and how one thing leads to the other. Lefishem chashuvim lifnei amokim, because they are important, they're esteemed in front of the Eibishter, laharich behem. They deserve to go in at great length and detail about their life. You find similarly in the 10 generations from Adam to Noach, Pliny hoyled Pliny, so and so gave birth to so and so, Noach. But when Noach came along, Herich boy, Torah talk about it in length. The next 10 generations, Kitzur behem, everything was very precise, concise. But when he came to Avram Avinu Herich boy, it was an arichas, everything was at length. Mashal Margolius is compared to a jewel. I thought a Margolius was a pearl.
Pearl. That's more precise.
Shenafla bein hachoil, it fallen into the sand. Adam emashmash bachoil, a person searches in the sand. V'choivre bekvare, and he sifts through it with a sieve. Ad shemoitzas Margolius, until he finds the pearl. Shemoitza. Once he finds the pearl or the jewel, he throws the rocks out of his hands. He takes the pebbles and he throws it out of his hand. And he takes hold of the jewel. This is the main Rashi that we really want to learn. But since we're learning the Rashi, let's finish the Dover Acher. It's somewhat relevant to our discussion soon. Dover Acher, another pshat. It says Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov settled. Hapishtani hazeh nichnasu gemalav tunim pishtan. It was a flax dealer that came in full of camels and piles of flax. Hapacham mitama, the blacksmith wonders. Ona yikonas kalapishtan hazeh. Where will all this flax be stored? There was one wise man that responded, big deal. Just one spark goes out of your blows and burns it all out. Yaakov saw all the chiefs of Esav. Aksuvim Lamaila was just mentioned above. He wondered, who could vanquish all of them? So then what does it say? Maksiv Lamata. What does it tell to What does Torah write? What does Torah answer? Eila told us Yaakov Yosef. The answer is Yosef. The Ksiv in the pasuk says, "V'hoya beis Yaakov Esher beis Yosef lahava." That the house of Yaakov will be like a fire, and the house of Yosef a flame. Beis Esav lakash, and they're like straw. Esav is straw. Nitzat yoytza mi Yosef. A spark will go out from Yosef. Shes mechala v'soidef v'skulam will consume them all.
Barashi Yosef.
Okay.
What does this mean? Barashi Yosef. I see that a lot of times.
They don't know if it was for sure the words of Rashi, or maybe Rashi wrote it and then took it out of his pirush. Okay.
That's why it's the Vayeshev.
But this is not so important. What's important today is the mashal. This mashal, we find the whole Torah that we have 10 generations. The Torah tells you everything very quickly. and then we come to Noach at great length. Then 10 generations very quickly. Avram, great length. Then we come to Esav, the chiefs of Esav, quickly, fairly quickly. And then when we get to Yaakov, at great length. Why? Because it's like a diamond, it's like a jewel, like a pearl that's in the sand. You have to get there, you have to sift through it till you get there. Let's learn quickly also this Rashi is based on two medrashim. Rashi picks a few words from one medrash and a few words from the other medrash. So let's read the other two medrashim. Yeah, this is based on Menachem Mendel. Medrash Tanchuma, Reish Parshas Vayeshev, in the beginning of Parshas Vayeshev. So the Medrash says, here.
You can get that next door.
Maybe this one didn't have it. Yeah, this one didn't come out. Yeah.
Now I understand.
Yeah. Why did the Eibishter deal so much with the yichus of the nations of the world? Moshel HaMelech, a king. Moshel Shalom Margolis, he had a pearl. It was in the sand, and in the rocks. The king needed to look in the sand and the rocks to take out the pearl. From it, when he came to the pearl, he put aside the sand and the rocks, and he dealt with the margolis, with the jewel. The Eibishter dealt with the generations. He put them all together, but he put them aside. Adam, Sheis, Enosh, Kenav, Alal, Yored. That's in Divrei Hayomim. Quickly, do I go through all the the second 10 generations, Shem, and Veita, Vatinik, Neutelas, a Sefer. The child takes the sefer and he can read it in one shot, all 10 generations, 1,000 years. Goes like this. But when you come to the pearl, you come to the jewel, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, he deals with them. That's why right after the Pasha of the chiefs of Esav, it says Vayeshev Yaakov. That's what the Medrash says. Next Medrash Rabbi Rus. It's Sof Pedek Ches of Rus. That's the very end, the last few lines of the whole Medrash on Rus. Is it a Brechia V'Reb Simon? Because the end of Rus, it says all the generations that went from Peretz until Peretz. There's this one and Salman and then Yishai and David. So I go through 10 generations. So the Medrash says that Abrechim Reb Simon say Moshel HaMelech she'over memakam lamakal. He went from place to place. V'nofel margolis malroishai. The jewel of his crown fell out. Oh, we're talking Kutas Kislev, the jewel and the crown. It fell out. It fell into the sand. Amad HaMelech v'chol pamalya shaloi sham v'yoivrim v'shavim. And the people said, Mativa shel melech v'chol pamalya shelekan. What is everyone doing here? The melech and his whole company. So, Ro Amru Nafla Margolis Malroisha. They said what happened was the jewel of this crown fell into the sand. We're looking for it. Ma also, what did the king do? Tzavar es offer, made a big pile of the offer. Vehevi machbodas, he brought sieves. Ve'kovad es atzabur ve'echad v'leimotza. They put it through the pile of sand, couldn't find the jewel. Hasheni, they put through the next pile of sand, loy matzah, couldn't find the jewel. Hashlishi, they put through the third pile of the sand, matzah, they found the jewel. Amru, they scream out, matzah hamelech es margolisei. The king found his jewel of his crown. Kacha Kadosh Baruch Hu amar Avram, leich lecha, lecha yisim metzapa, matzorcha yeli liyachas, shame. And our parchashad shelach ever pelag nocher terach ela b'shvilcha. That's why it says in Divrei Hayom Aleph Avram hu Avram. What does it mean Avram hu Avram? This Avram, this is the main thing. The main story is all Avram. Matzosas lavav v'nam lefanecha. That's a pshat. We say in the morning matzosas lavav v'nam lefanecha. What does it mean? It was a metzia because it was lost. It was like a jewel. It was like a jewel in a box of sand, and they're looking and looking, and finally the Eibush says, "Oh, matzosas levav enam lefanecha." He found the jewel, and that is Avraham Avinu.
Isn't this the history of the Jews?
Yeah.
And in the dirt all the time?
Oh, 1 second. Let's finish the Medrash. Now it says, Kach, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, LeDavid, Eibush said to David, Matzoyre choyeli liyaches, Peretz, Chetzer, and Roma, mi Nodav, Nachshon, Salmoin, Boy, Azoy, Vedishai, Loi B'shvilcha. It was only for you. Matzosi David Avdi. That's also Metzia, I found the jewel. I found the jewel.
Some of those guys were good guys. Shem, Ava.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what someone just asked. A very good question. And Mechlal of the Rebbe's Chiddush that we will learn tonight, you will have a very clear answer to this question. The Rebbe doesn't ask this question, doesn't answer. But Mechlal, what we will learn, you'll have a clear answer to this question.
Is that where the word jewel comes from?
Yeah.
This Jewish jewel.
You gotta have some relationship.
All right.
Why? Why does it have to have some relationship?
Why not? So, okay, so the Pshuta Shel Mikra is very simple. What's the bothering Rashi? The whole pasuk is expert. The pasuk is saying nothing. Already in the previous pasha, your friend Mr. Azar will come. We want to know why we didn't treat you. So, in the previous pasha, towards the end, it says, finally Yaakov comes home. He comes home to his father. First, there's all the stuff that happened on the way. He meets Esav. Then he moves to Shechem. The war against Shechem. They kill all of Shechem. So he decides to go away from Shechem. He goes to Beisel. After Beisel, finally, he comes home. He comes to Hebron. He meets with his father. Finally, he meets up with his father in Hebron. Ve'eretz Megurei Aviv. And finally, his father passes away and he buries him. Then it says Ela Toldo Yitzchak, and it talks all about Esav for maybe about 30, 35 psukim. And then the finish, that's the end of Parshas Vayishlach. So what is it Torah starting? Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Megurei Aviv Meretz. No, we know this. We just went through all that. I mean, you must have been sleeping through a whole parsha if you don't know this. This is the whole Parshas Vayishlach, is he's trying to get home to his father, and finally he gets there. So we know he got there. So what's the pasuk saying? Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Megurei Aviv. The truth is that the Torah really took a little bit of a detour, so we want to get back to. It's like the same thing by Vayetze Yaakov. We know already he left, but we learned about it. Parshas Vayetze. The Torah wants to come back, but what do we want to come back to? It's not like the story doesn't continue. And what's worse is it says Vayeshev. It's as if there's a connection. So that's why Rashi explains that there is a connection. That there is the settlement of Esav. There is Yaakov, and Yaakov is like a jewel that's in the sandbox that we have to pluck him out. And that's why the Torah tells you all about Esav, and then tells you about Yaakov. So the brother of the Maral Prague wrote a sefer, and he wrote many svarim. He was actually a chavrusa with the Ramah.
What was his name?
Reb Chaim ben Betzalel. The Maral's brother, Reb Chaim, was a Moedik Talmid Chochem. He was a good friend of the Ramos. Obviously, he was, and he wrote us many svarim. One is Be'er Ma'im Chaim on Ashi. He says, I don't understand. He says, very simple. You can't. The Eibishter can't say, I created the world. Voila, Avraham Avinu. What happened? So B'Kitzara, we tell you quickly 10 generations, Noach, and then quickly 10 generations, Avraham Avinu. But Yitzchak has a son, Yaakov Avinu. It's very simple. Why do you have to talk about his brother? Why is it relevant to know about his brother? True, there are parts of the story where it's relevant, right? When he steals the b'chor and he steals the blessing from his older brother, so we have to know he has an older brother, right? You can't steal something from your brother if you don't have a brother. So Torah has to tell you he has a brother. And then he steals the blessing. And the brother wants to kill him. And he runs away to Lavan. There are parts in the story, by the time Yitzchak passes away, anything in the history of Esav is irrelevant to us right now. So why does the Torah keep on going and talking and talking? 35 psukim is a lot.
Like his yichus also.
Yeah, but the
Who
yichus.
married in this?
Who married who? And
How would I have
it's okay. So a little bit we have a chois loitam timna. So Eliphaz goes and sleeps with the guy from Seir, and she has a child, and he marries that child, and the Torah wants to tell us the godless of that she, even though her father was a king, she wanted to marry Eliphaz because she wanted to be Dovuk Lazar Shel Avram, and he said, no, I don't want to marry you. Vayeshev was his daughter, but she pushed strong enough. She said, you know what, I'll take you as a Pelegish. So there are a few nuggets here but otherwise the 35 psukim. What is? So that's how is this? How is the story of? Why is it important to tell? It's Bederech Tzara, but it's still 35 psukim. Why is the Torah tell you all this? Why is it Negeya to know that there is this one married this one and they went that one and they moved here and there were 8 kings and Vayimlech, Vayamas, Vayimlech, and he was Shaul Meracheva Sanar and he was Zorach Mibotzera. What's Negeya? Zorach came from Botzera or from Baltimore.
It's not a history book.
Right.
Torah is
So the Maskil of David in its answers, he says you have to tell a story incomplete, just like by Yishmael and the Bnei Keturah, the Torah tells us. Also, just by Nocher, it's like Terech had. So we tell you all because Avram is Choshev. We tell you about the whole family, and then because Avram Avinu is Choshev, mainly we talk about Yitzchak. We also about Keturah's children and Yishmael.
Very short.
Very good, you got it. That's very short.
Very short.
The Torah doesn't say
Send them
7
away,
kings.
goodbye.
Send them
Give
away
them
and
presents,
goodbye. Send them away goodbye. Not 35 psukim. The Torah tells you who married who and who married who. And then, do you know, by the time the Torah finishes telling you, the last king, Rashi says the last king Hadad was in the time of Shaul HaMelech.
How many hundred?
So the Torah, right? The Torah like tells you, Esav comes and conquers the country. Then he sleeps with this one. This one sleeps with all Mamzedim there, and then the Torah tells you how they organized their kingdom. And then there's 7 kings, where he came from, who was his mother, what was his occupation, what he did. He died. Then the kingdom falls apart. And then there is 11 different chiefs. There's different alufim, and then we say that every aluf goes to a different place in the world and starts his own kingdom. The last king, Hadad, was in the time of Shaul HaMelech. So, why is this? Like the Maral tries to answer his brother, he says, because for it, we need to know a little bit about, because he says it's very poshut. He says that what did Esav said, why did Esav move? He said that there is, in order to inherit this land, you got to pay a price. I don't want the land, I don't want to pay the price. The price is going down for 210 years to Egypt. Moichel the price, Moichel the gift, I'm out of here. So we want to know that. It's important for the Torah to tell that you should know that even though Yitzchak was promised to get the land, so Esav might in the future come along or his descendants and say, the Jews don't belong in Israel. The Goyim have a say in Israel. So we'll say, listen, we're going to say, listen to the Goyim. There's been once a story in history, and Esav already said, I'm not interested, and I'm moving out of this place. But that's still not, after he moves out of Israel, there's still Onasov Psukim, again, telling us the history till Shaul HaMelech. Why is all this relevant? Why is all this relevant? So L'chayra the Maral did not adequately answer his brother's kasha. He answered that one pasuk. Why we need to know that pasuk that Esav said, Vayelech Esav, that Bnei Yaakov Achiv, he said, I don't want to pay the price of going to Mitzrayim. But why does the Torah have to tell us after that, the whole Arichas, at length? The Torah never did that with Yishmael or with Keturah, with Nocher. Why did the Torah have to tell us at such great length what's going on with Esav? Also, if you look closely, there's like a few interesting diukim in the Medrash. Firstly, the Medrash talks about 2 things. There is choil and tzeroides. There's sand and rocks. Why 2 things? Sand and rocks. And why is the first Medrash very different than the second Medrash? The first Medrash is he says he's looking. The Melech is looking. He's looking. Look at the third line. He's mefashrish be'ofer b'tzerodis loitzam argolis metoichen. Kshagia Melech lemargolis hiniach ha'ofer v'atzerodis v'nesasik margolis. First thing is in the Medrash itself. What is obviously once you get to Margolis, that's it. It's like in the second Medrash. Once they get to Margolis, everyone screams, "Besimcha the Melech found the Margolis." Sounds like the Melech does a special ma'isa. He puts down the offer on the tzeroides. Well, obviously you're going to put down the offer once you find the jewel. It's like the Medrash is telling you a chiddush. The second Medrash doesn't say that. It just says once they found the jewel, so they all scream, "Matzah Melech Margolisai." But the first Medrash emphasizes Hiniach offer v'satzeroides. Why? Number one, why do we have to tell you two things, offer and tzeroides? Number two, why do we have to say Hiniach? Like he put it down. Now it's important to say he put down the offer and tzeroides. And Rashi says it emphasizes even more. Rashi says that he threw it. And Rashi is interesting. When Rashi starts speaking, he talks only about the sand, and at the end he talks only about the rocks. So why does Rashi do that? Also, Rashi picks a little bit from each medrash. The general mashal he uses from the first medrash, but this thing that he picked a sieve that he takes from the second medrash. So why is Rashi taking most of the mashal from the first medrash, and then only the little nakuda he takes from the second medrash? Okay, so the Rebbe says like this.
Also,
Very
the
cautious.
second Medrash says Nafla Margolis Miyal Rosha.
Yeah.
And in the first, it doesn't say that.
Right.
He just had a Margolis in the Shmutz.
Yeah. So the Zach is like this. So it's very simple. We have a Rashi in the when Yaakov meets his brother says, "You know what? I'm going to escort you." He says, "I don't really need your favors." He says, "Why not?" He says, "The children, by the time they shake a leg, we're not going to get anywhere."
I need to go slowly.
Yeah, so he says, "You know what? Some of my men will stay with you." Yeah, he's trying to get this guy away from him. He says, Nishkefel, he could take you guys. You don't have to bother. I'll go slowly with the children. Don't worry, I'll make it there myself. Okay, Esav says, okay, Nishkefel. So Esav girl rides off with his men, or without his men. By then the men were not there. But Yaakov L'chayra lied. Said he's going to go to Seir. We never find that he goes to Seir.
He went the other direction. He went the other direction.
The other direction. So what does Rashi answer? Mashiach will come. He didn't lie. We made Melech Mashiach. We're going to do that. We're going to visit Esav in Mitzvah Shem.
He said we're walking slowly.
slowly. We're getting there. We're still walking. We're going to get there. Mashiach is going to come.
And where's Seir?
Where's that, in Jordan?
We're going to get there. Where's that original Seir is now? It's a piece of land in Jordan. Maybe a little bit of Iraq. In Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? The truth is that there is a jewel buried in Esav. Because the Yidden are taking back the land of Esav. All these lands that we talk about, the Esav lands, there's going to be a day when Jews are going to come collect it. There is two things within Esav. Within the Gentiles, when Mashiach will come, there is a pasuk that says, that I will call the Goyim and I will tell them with a clear voice who I am, and they will serve me. It says even that a chazer is going to become kosher, and chazer represents who? Edom. Edom is a chazer. And then they're going to become kosher again. But then there is a pasuk that says, V'hoya beis Yaakov Esha, beis Yosef lahava, beis Esav lakash, v'ochel v'lo yisorin. They'll be burnt to crisp, like we had the Dover Acher in Rashi, the Rashi Yoshan, the old Rashi, before it was revised.
Yep.
The real deal. What's going to happen to Esav is that you're not going to burn them. They're just like a kash. They're like straw. So which one is true? They're both true. There are going to be goyim. There is going to be goyim that are going to be servants to Eden. They're going to be v'omdu zorim v'ro tzonchem. They're going to serve, and therefore, all of it, just like originally when the Eibishter created the world, there is a klipa and there's a pri. There's a shell and what comes first? The flower, the shell, the fruit comes later because it has to protect it. Says the Arizal, that's why Esav comes before Yaakov. So Tzedek says that's very simple because the kash, the straw, has to come before. You can't have the chitim first and then the straw. First you have the straw and then in that grows the wheat. You don't have wheat and then straw. First you have the straw and then you have the wheat, so it protects it. So there is going to be loss of love of what happened, and the chait makes that there's a mixture of good and bad. We don't know where is the fruit, and where is who's supposed to protect who is important, who's supposed to who. The goyim think that their job is not to protect us. Some goyim think their job is to antagonize us. So it's not clear who is when Mashiach will come. The goyim, there will be goyim who will be burnt. There'll be ois because they're ra gomur, evil, and you can't deal with them. And they're going to be the ones, they're going to be om duzorim v'rod tzayimchem. They're going to stand up and they're going to be the shepherds for the Jews. They'll do it with great pleasure. That's the difference between choil and tzeroidus. What do we know from tzeroidus? What's tzeroidus? When a kid learns Gemara, chatzin has a tzeroidus, pebbles, right? There's a nasty stuff. The behemoth goes into your thing, and all of a sudden he starts kicking pebbles, breaks a window, breaks a few glass dishes, a few clay dishes. A chatzin has a tzeroidus. So tzeroidus rocks. We usually there's a negative connotation to rock. Sand is just you can use sand for good stuff too. But you can get lost in sand as well. So you have to use the sand in the right way. Just on a deeper level, if you just think of Chassidus, so you understand it clearer of Chassidus. Chassidus understands that in this world there are sparks of holiness. The job of the Jew is to collect the sparks. That's why the Alter Rebbe says, why does a person who's a higher level than the food, the man is the highest kingdom, but his sustenance is from the food. Why does he need the food? The Arizal says, because God's energy that's in the food. But there's God's energy also in me. Why do I need the food? God's energy in the food. I need God's energy in the orange juice. What's wrong with that? So Chassidus says, no. The Alter Rebbe says, because there's higher sparks of holiness in the Gashmis of the world, higher than the person. But the problem is that they're buried in a pile of sand. They are the jewel. That's the mashal here. Why do we need a mashal? Everything is very simple. Just say, what did Rashi say that needs a mashal here? And Rashi told you very simple. 10 generations, the Torah tells you very quickly. It's irrelevant. We just want to get to the point. When we get to the point, we say it ba'arichus. When we're just getting there, we say it b'kitzah. Why does Rashi have to give you a mashal? A mashal is like, wow, I couldn't understand it. Now the mashal helps me understand. There's something very deep. From the king's crown, there is a jewel. There's netzutzas of kedusha that fall into the sand. And the job of the Jew is to come. And where do they fall? A lot of them fall by Esav. The biggest Gadim came from Esav. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva, the biggest sparks of kedusha came from Esav. In Esav is buried the biggest sparks. Onkelos comes from there. The biggest sparks are buried there. So, just like Chassidus says that there's sparks of kedusha. Similarly, Chassidus explains the struggle between Yaakov and Esav. In this week's Lekutei Torah, those that learned the Shabbos morning, it says V'rav Yavet Tzoyer. The older one will be a servant to the younger, but he's called the older one. Chassidus is true. Eila Malachim Hashem Olchu Be'edem Lifnei Malach Melech B'nei Yisrael. Those 7 kings came all first because they are first also spiritually. They're on a higher spiritual level. The Alter Rebbe explains in the Torah of this week, Parsha, of the previous week, Vayeshev, that the world of Esav is the world of Toyu, which is a higher spiritual world. As Arizal said that before the world of Tikkun came a world of Toyu, but they exploded, Shviras HaKelim. Then comes the Yaakov is the younger one. Esav is the Bechor. Yaakov is the younger one. He comes from the world of Tikkun. He fixes the world of Esav. When a broken vessel is in the street, Hefker, when you go fix it, it belongs to you. Now, when Yaakov fixes the sparks of Esav, and takes it out of the sand, it becomes his. That's why ultimately Mashiach will come. So therefore, now we understand quite well that this mashal is coming to explain us something. It's not just We're saying that that Rashi could say it's simple: 10 generations bekitzer, 1 generation barichas. That works for the first 10 generations. The second gen, but when you come to the third story, when it comes to Esav, where everything is, what Torah tells you all about Esav and then about Yaakov, you're still going to ask, what do you mean? Wait a minute! Don't tell me it was quick and then that was kitzer and now was arichas. That was irrelevant to begin with. By the first 2 times, you could tell me, we just fast forward. We went quickly. 10 generations, Noach. 10 generations, Avram. But the third time the Torah does it, and the Torah spends a long time telling you about Esav, you can't say, it's quick and then...
Yeah.
But why talk about it all together? The answer is there's a lot of sparks of Kedusha there. There's those 7 kings of Tohu. There is the 11 Alufim, the 11 generals, the 11 kingdoms, which is this, in Kedusha there's 10, but in Klippa it's 11. the Alufim of Esav. And Yaakov Avinu the Jew has to go and collect the Margolis of the Melech out of them. Okay. Now we can understand why a few things in Rashi. First of all, why Rashi uses this thing of sifting, because sifting is the birut, to separate the bad from the good. Why do we say that there is sand and also rocks? As we said before, when we separate the good from the bad, there is this part of this world that we could use for Kedusha, and there's a part that we have to discard altogether. So in our day, when we sift through our day, we have to sift through our day. There's a lot of junk, the spam in our day. So we have to sift through our day to find the jewel in the day. So the jewel is no doubt Sunday night. The jewel of the week is Sunday night when we learn the Rebbe's Pshat and Rashi. There's no question about that. But the problem is sometimes we don't realize that. So we have to go through our schedule, or the week of the day. And we have to realize what is rock and what is sand. That's why in the second Medrash is talking about the first 10 generations, the second 10 generations, even about the 10 generations of David HaMelech. Those are not things that you throw away. Chas v'sholom, those 10 generations are like you asked, it's Kedusha. That's why in that Medrash doesn't say that when the king found the Margolis, the other stuff he threw away. We don't throw away. There's nothing to throw away. In the second Medrash, talking about the 10 generations and the 10 generations, talking about the 10 generations until David HaMelech. You don't throw them away. The first Medrash is talking about the sparks of Kedusha that are hidden in the sand, they are hidden in this world, and more specifically, they're in Esav sandbox, in the kingdom of Esav, and Yid has to go and Golos in all the lands of Esav and take out the sparks of Kedusha. So Yid has to look around and see what is rocks, which part of my day, in other words, there are material things that are sand. I have to eat, I have to drink, I have to have a business. These things are important, because in order to serve Hashem, I need to earn a living. So those are sand. Those I have to put aside, but there is things that I have to throw away. Those are rocks. That's why the Medrash talks about 2 separate things. The Medrash says you have to throw it away. It's important. In other words, a person has to prioritize. Before you start sifting, you have to realize what's the value of sand, and what's the value of rock, and what's the value of the jewels. The Rambam says that a person could use everything a person does could do it l'shem shemayim, but we have to know that without the l'shem shemayim, without the jewel, these stuff is sand and rocks. They're nothing. It's important to know that if it's not for the jewel, these things are nothing. They're sand and they're rocks. That's why it's important. Rashi says that first, before we start Avodas HaBirurim, he talks about the choil. Once we separate it, and now we separate the good from the bad, what are we left with? The rocks. The rocks are nothing. There's nothing. You throw it away. That's why hinichon or mashlichon, he throws them totally away. This also explains that the last Rashi, this is the first Rashi of this week's Parsha, it also explains the last Rashi of the last week's Parsha. Rashi, it says Magdiel, and what does Rashi say? One word, Hiroimi. But this is Rome. So why is it important? Why is it important to know that Magdiel is Rome? Who cares it's Rome? Is it not Rome? What's the difference what it is?
It brings it home to a modern context. By the time the Gemara and Rashi, you're going to talk about Har Seir with some hill in Judaism, it's meaningless. Doesn't mean anything to us.
Oh, it does,
Rome is the central power.
A child says, but better yet, in Shutta Shemikra, a child says, you just told me, at the end, we're going to say it. We're going V'olam Mashiach Baratzin Lishpatas Haresav. So where is that?
Rome.
What do you mean? Now we know we're not in Haresav right now. We're not somewhere on a hill. We're not Mashiach. The Yeshua is going to come and take the Jews out of exile. They take the Jews out of exile. So yeah, that's not Harseir. So Rashi says, you know what Magdiel is? Magdiel is Rome. So after the last king, Hadar, after the 8th king or the 7th king, after Hadar came along, then Rashi says they were all dispersed. They were not anymore in the same place, and there were 11 different alufim, 11 different families, and each one went to a different country. How does Rashi know there were different countries? The alufim were not different people; they were different countries because Magdiel is Roimi. So obviously, also the other ones is different countries. Why is Roimi called Magdiel? For 2 reasons. One is Magdiel means big. The Eibishter made, that's the word Rome, Roim, big. The Eibishter made them big. The Eibishter, and also Higdil al kol kel. Yisroim v'izgadal al kol kel. He gave them influence. He made them powerful and influential,
widespread
over the whole world. So now, when a kid is going to say, "What do you mean, Vol Mashin Lishpatas Haretzav?" We're not now in Golus under the people that are sitting in Har Seir. Ashi says, boy, no. Magdiel is one of the 11 families. They settled in Magdiel, which is Roimi. And that our Golus now is Roimi. Our Golus right now is Roimi. So the kids say, wait a minute. But after Magdiel, it says one more. After Magdiel, it says one more. Aluf Edom. Some Mefarshim say that Edom and Magdiel is the same thing. But that couldn't be according to Chassidus. Chassidus says there was 11 Alufim. Because in Kedusha everything is 10, and in Tumah it's 11, like the Toides. So the answer is that there's a Medrash. The Medrash is that the Rebami saw that they crowned the king. I forgot the name. Something. It sounds like Latin, and his name Latin became the influential language. His name was something close to Latin, and Rebami said, "Oh, Mashiach is about to come, because he's Magdiel. After that has to come Edom." So we see from this medrash that the difference of Magdiel and Edom is that it's Rome, but a different kingdom within Rome. So I don't know how you separate from from the influence of that king which established Latin to, but what does the medrash say? Who is Edom? So the medrash says Edom is Osid la'aroim tasvorius l'melech HaMashiach. He is going to collect, Laroim is Arema. He's going to collect a big pile of jewels that he will give as a gift to Melech HaMashiach. That's why after Magdiel has to come Edom. Both is really Rome. And Roy means 2 things. Roy means powerful, and Magdiel also means Godel, and also means have influence all over the world. So that is the negative. Then comes the positive tkufa. There's 2. There is when there is the offer and the tzroir. And then there is when we take out the Margolius. We take out the pile of jewels. So there's Magdiel. So Rebami said this is not the Mashiach yet. Mashiach is not yet. It's close. Latinus became influential in the whole world. Latin, one step closer. After that has to come Edom. Edom is Osid la'aroim tasvorius l'melech HaMashiach. He's going to bring a big pile of jewels for Melech HaMashiach.
What is that? So?
What does that
Huh?
What does that signify?
What does that signify?
Huh?
Is that 47th Street? Just kidding.
You see all the Arab in Yerushalayim throwing stone.
What is that?
The Medrash says,
we've seen in Yerushalayim all the Arab throwing stone constantly.
yeah, the mashal, the tzroidus. So there's going to have to be, the Medrash says that there was a king in Rome that started spending a lot of his, so Leonov, he came to him in his dream, he said, what, Meshiga? You're getting rid of all your oitzes? So he started to collect more taxes to fill up his Lakayim Hashanema, because the Goyim have to have a big stash ready for Melech HaMashiach. So for sure, there must be something kipshuta in this Medrash, but what it really means is, on a spiritual level, is is what Rashi continues later, that Esav is like a pile of sand and rocks, and the Yidden have to sift through, and the Yidden take out all the gems, the netzutzas of Kedusha that are there. And when the Yidden finish collecting all the netzutzas of Kedusha, that's why the Torah has to tell you at length all the story of Esav, because these are the sandboxes where there is Aluf Magdiel Roimi. Yidden are going to have to be all over Golus Roimi to collect, because we have to have the pile of jewels that'll be ready for Melech and Mashiach. So it's up to every one of us. So we have to spend some time thinking by Krishma Shalamita about our day, because there's a lot of rock and there's a lot of sand in our day, and we have to know what are the jewels. First, we have to know that the Gashmisnika stuff are rock and sand. That's the first step. Once we know it's rock and sand, then we could use it to find the jewel. Then we have to find and collect the last few jewels, and when we find the last few jewels, amidst Hashem, then we'll be Volim Mashiach Bartzin Lishpat Asaresav. The Rebbe says a Moradike word that immediately when the Melech finds the Margolis, he throws it immediately. That's why it says when the Yidden were out of Egypt, it says Lo hikfa mafila ke'erevayin. What do you care? There was no trouble anymore. But as soon as Mashiach has to come, you can't wait in Golos for another second. Same thing when Mashiach will come. Lo hikfa. It says also Mashiach will come. He will Nebish will not me'akev. As soon as the last Jew is going to find, as soon as a Jew will find the last jewel, the last Margolis, that's it. It's going to be immediately. The Nebish is going to be mashlich. Some of the goyim are going to go flying like kash; it'll be burnt. The other one will be put to work for the Yidden, and then there'll be all the Mashiach Bartzi and Lishpat Zareis. Ev shall help. We should all be able to sift through in our day. We should be able to throw away the chayil and the tzreitis, and we should be able to deliver the jewels to Melech and Mashiach. It's him because people will be matching them like offer.
Going home?
No, I want you to introduce